Hi, I'm Lindsay Anderson, Vice President of Client Development here at TRG Arts, a results-driven consulting firm that works with arts and cultural organizations. We're doing a series on the 6 metrics that arts leaders should be tracking and managing. When it comes to pricing, many arts marketers think that the percentage of capacity sold is the most important metric to measure. This simply measures how well sold your events are. But what this metric doesn't tell you is if you're generating the most revenue that you can from each event, regardless of how popular it is. To determine this, you should look at per capita revenue, also known as average ticket revenue or per ticket yield. Per capita is Latin for each head, so it's a measurement of revenue on average for each person who attends an event. This metric is a barometer for one simple question: is our pricing right? So how do you calculate per capita revenue? For each event this year, you'll take your single ticket revenue divided by the number of single tickets or units sold. You can slice and dice this metric in a number of different ways, including by series, by date, even by buyer type. We'd recommend you start with overall single ticket per capita for each event. It looks like this. How do we interpret this? How do you know if you've adopted the right pricing strategy? In a successful pricing strategy, per capita revenue rises as demand increases. That means your best-selling events yield more revenue per ticket than other, less well-attended events. Too often, however, this is what we see. Ticket sales, represented by the red bars in this chart, increase, while per capita revenues, the black lines, actually go down. You don't want this negative trend to happen because of your strategy. This is what strategies like dynamic pricing help to fight or prevent. If you don't make more revenue as events sell more fully, you need to manage revenue through pricing. One prime culprit is policies for discounting and complimentary tickets. Timing plays a big role into how effective these strategies can be to maximizing revenue potential. We need to manage revenue based on demand, and that means that the organization as a whole needs to manage demand. What that means is we need to understand which events, dates, and times are in demand. If demand exists, we need to think about pricing for these types of blockbuster events. And what that means is that we should aggressively invest in them, and we need to be very careful about comps and discount management. When we're in lower demand, everything goes. We can be more experimental with promotions and different types of trial offers because what we're trying to do is drive volume into an event and make as much money as we can. We're going to talk about one of TRG's favorite case studies, which features the Nutcracker from New York City Ballet. When we started working together, one of New York City Ballet's objectives was to try and maximize revenue potential from their very popular and well-attended production of the Nutcracker. Before we started working together, here's what the environment looked like. Nutcracker was a very strong seller, extremely well marketed, and New York City Ballet was selling out almost all of its performances. About 89% of the seats were sold. So they were asking themselves, where do we go from here? Sales had been pretty flat because they weren't able to add more performances, and they felt like they had adjusted prices and their scale of house plan as much as they could. TRG's data analysis of the situation revealed several things. First of which was that their yield was out of sync with demand. Per capita revenue was actually decreasing as demand was increasing and they were selling more tickets. In addition, there was some guessing at anticipated demand. Some days and times of day were priced differently based on what New York City Ballet was looking at for past sales history and what they anticipated future sales to be. Finally, perception of success was not being maximized. There were visible, empty seats, even when they were well sold. Following the work with TRG to revise their scale of house plans and their pricing tables, New York City Ballet realized a $1.1 million increase on their production of the Nutcracker the following year. $600,000 of that was directly attributed to the scale of house changes that were made. But in addition, they were more aggressive with their dynamic pricing decisions, which yielded another $170,000. And through volume driving strategies, they sold 3,000 more tickets, which netted $330,000. And coupling that with fluid scale of hall and inventory management tactics, as well as pricing changes, is what allowed them to realize this $1.1 million increase. So how did they do it? First of all, New York City Ballet invested in an in-depth analysis of their data and past patron buying behavior to inform the decisions and changes they made to pricing and their scale of house plans. They also replaced peak and off-peak pricing with dynamic pricing. Therefore, they were making proactive decisions based on demand. Inventory management became a primary focus for the marketing team, and as a result, every performance looked well attended. Finally, New York City Ballet had a program called Suite Seats. It's VIP access to a select number of seats that also includes post-performance activities. We expanded the number of seats that were offered, much to the delight of their patrons, and New York City Ballet increased revenue from the program. You can read more about New York City Ballet's case study on our website at trgarts.com. The case study will feature more details on the scenario and exactly what New York City Ballet implemented to see these $1.1 million revenue increases. Another case study you may be interested in reading that was published this year is about New Wolsey Theatre in the United Kingdom. This case study talks about how they made changes to the scale of house plan and really revised their discounting policy. They also replaced peak and off-peak pricing with dynamic pricing. And these changes yielded them in one season a 31% increase in ticket income, as well as a 31.5% increase in their per capita revenue. So visit our website at trgarts.com if you're interested in reading more about this case study. Remember, what gets measured gets managed. You can set your organization's priorities by what you can monitor. We'd encourage you to monitor per capita revenue regularly, both the average per capita for each event and for subscriptions and/or memberships. If per capita revenue isn't on your sales reports today, TRG would encourage you to add it. It can help you understand, based on whether it's going up, down, or staying flat, perhaps changes that need to be made in your strategy. Tracking this metric empowers your organization to make changes. TRG advocates that organizations have a weekly or bi-weekly meeting to track ticket sales, how events are filling, and metrics like per capita revenue. We call these revenue pacing meetings. Who should attend them? Absolutely includes ticket office representation, marketing, development, group sales. We also encourage executive leadership and artistic leadership or representatives to attend this meeting to understand what's happening with inventory. Whomever has a finger on inventory should understand what's going on and should understand what's happening with the sales environment. Therefore, we encourage this organization-wide focus on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. When organizations work hard in an environment driven by the right goals and informed by the right data, it works. Metrics like per capita revenue can help you focus on the right strategies. They can point out what your organization is doing right and what staff members can focus on to improve. That's our last metric. We hope you've enjoyed this series, and to see all the videos in this series or learn more about how to make data-driven decisions, visit the TRG website at www.trgarts.com. Thanks so much for joining us.